50 years of developing this work has been to make this work available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. So having you on board to do it's awesome. And the worksheet that you're looking at, or will be looking at, this is version, I haven't kept count. There have been times when I've done significant edits to this worksheet 6 times in a day. There are times when the workshop that goes hand in hand with this worksheet, which I used to do in a 4-hour venue, now do it in a 3-hour venue. And that's available. There's a link there for it if you want to do that whole workshop. I've done it as many as 3 times a day. So you're looking at version, I don't know, 2022. I mean, every word is put there for a reason, and we're going to do the best we can do to expose you to why and how and just what exactly happens. I taught this process for decades before I could explain, because it's so backward. It's so ridiculous when you look at what forgiveness actually is. You look at it with the mind of our programming from the world. But when you see what's behind it, the genius of it, it's not my invention. It actually comes out of the 1st century Aramaic language 2,000 years ago. But it took me 35 years of working with it to be able to explain why and how it works. And as we unfold today, we'll do our best to explain that to you and make it as available as possible. So delighted that you're here.
Thank you. Today, I will start going through the worksheet, and Michael will share his pieces throughout the session as well. Melinda has very kindly offered to do the worksheet and go through the worksheet with us as well. So we'll use Melinda as the example, and then if you all get your pens and paper and you can write and go through the worksheet and work on an area for yourselves as well.
By the way, if you want to take your understanding to another level, once we get through this, there's also a resource on our website, whyagain.org, that we just recently completed. There's a gentleman that moved to our center just a few months ago and was introduced to the forgiveness process. Very curious and a lot of questions. So we spent about 8 hours on the video show over a period of 2 weeks. And Jeannie's edited that into just concise conversations where we went through the worksheet and the whole foundation. So if you want to really take your understanding to a whole other level, then go to whyagain.org, events, and find that set of radio shows. And if you have questions, 5 days a week from 1 till 2 o'clock Eastern time, actually from noon till 2 o'clock, but 1 till 2, my wife Jeannie and I do what we call Mind Shifters Radio. And the information for connecting with it is in the resources link. But you can listen to that on your computer, and or if you have access to US phone, call into the show and ask questions. You can also download the app, go to your app store. The worksheet we're going to do today is one of the versions of the worksheet that is in the app. It's the world's own actual forgiveness app. So if you just go to your app store and type in Heartland, Heartland, one word, Aramaic forgiveness. If you're seeing a picture of a heart, light it up, that's the app. And you can do this worksheet right there on the app. And a new feature that just went in with the latest version of the app, it's about its 5th iteration. But one of the newest features that's been added is that on any page, if you have a question, you're on step 2 or step 3 or step 5B, or something you don't understand, click a button, type in your question, hit send. Jeannie will get it. She'll read it on our next radio show. We'll talk about it, give you the answer to that, send you back to that, the answer to your question. So any resources that give you, they're there. That the app is one of the best we've got. So Ms. Yinka, you're going to guide the process, and I'm going to be here for support. So okay. I'll follow your lead.
I'm going to put in the chat all the details Michael has just shared. Share my screen. Is it the reality management? Yeah. So reality management worksheet, my reality any perpetual output constructed by my mind. Wake up sheet, manage, change your mind, change your life. The how-to of true Aramanic forgiveness. Forgiveness, the tool for waking up from and changing my reality.
So one of the things that is a good piece to throw in at this stage is there's something that the whole world believes that's totally false. And that is the whole world believes that they have a set of eyes. They look out into the world and they see what's happening. And that's one of the biggest falsehoods we've ever been fed. There's been some lab research that shows that the picture world, the construct that we see, shows up in the mind about 500. I have to get the number back. I believe it's 7/10,000ths of a second after the event happens. The picture in your brain doesn't show up when the event happens. So when we're living in the constructs of the mind, which in this work we define as reality, there's the world of actuality. There's what actually happened. And then each person who observes something happening, or what they call observes, their mind produces a picture, a construct. That construct is a reflection first of the content of one's mind. That's why this tool is so powerful. Because if your content contains any form of pain, turmoil, or trauma, it's removable because it's not true about the actual world, though it may be true for you and true about the perception in your mind. But perception is malleable, and the quality of your perceptions can be improved immeasurably as you begin to corrupt data from your mind. And that's our definition of forgiveness. It's the removal of corrupt data. It's not about letting somebody else off the hook because some sort of pain or trauma based in corrupt data in yourself is showing up. Having that piece of understanding, to me, is just monumental, because anywhere you go, virtually actually, my granddaughter's 4. I've shared this before, but just was so amazing to me. She listens and she listens. The first 2 years of her life, or well, actually, first little better than a year, 3 days a week, she was, in our care, and fortunately she still is. And she would be sound asleep on my shoulder, listening or with me during the radio show for the first year or so of her life. We were watching a video. She's very much in anatomy and physiology. And a few weeks ago, she wanted to watch a video. In it, there's an outline. It's an anatomy lesson for children. She just is into anatomy and physiology. And all of the organs, there's an outline of the body, and all the organs of the body followed onto the ground in order of size. And then each of them sings to the child their function. When the eyes come up to sing, the eyes start their little song. I am your eyes, I am your eyes, I see the world around you. My granddaughter looks at me and she says, Papa, they don't understand. We see the world with our brain, not with our eyes. Important piece of information. Everything you see with your eyes is generated by your brain. That's why it's changeable. And that's why forgiveness works.
Okay. Premise: my essential nature, my human life, my very being is love. Hold a newborn baby. The goal of this eternal forgiveness wake-up sheet is to empower me to remove fear and/or hostility and return me to the direct experience of love 24/7, 365 days. So this bit was from the exercise of just holding a newborn baby. The best exercise I know to practice and strengthen your ability to hold a space for love is to close your eyes and allow yourself to become quiet. With your awareness focused inside, think of that which is inspires in you the clearest, strongest, most powerful love you are capable of feeling. So just hold that space for a minute. And then the first part of this is to write 1A. This is for Melinda to do. I, Melinda, who am love, am experiencing 1B to identify the emotion of what you're experiencing.
Really? So I don't know this worksheet, so at least it'll be authentic because I'm not familiar with it. So that's my name.
Mm-hmm. So you say, I, Melinda,
who am love, I am experiencing heartbreak.
And the idea of starting the worksheet out with this is most of us have been given messages about ourselves that aren't true. And our mind has accepted those messages and makes up a reality about us that isn't true. So each worksheet that you do becomes a reminder, oh, this is who I am. Yes, something else is going on. The ancient teachings, they said, in order for you to live, you need to die. And of course, they were talking physical death there. They were saying the self you think you are has to go and just replace with the truth. It's the first step in these worksheets. We certainly hold the space for healing of the heartbreak that's for you.
Remember to breathe. So it says use a separate worksheet for each emotion. Hostility and fear from the internal corrupt data is indication mine use of sustained incoherence to build this disturbing internal construct. My denial causes my carbon-based memory to displace my experience of myself and my essence, love, and tells me the lie that my emotions are caused by my trigger.
Now, new words that we're going to introduce here, new words for most people. See an asterisk, and down below you'll see a definition. This idea of sustained incoherence. There was a physicist named David Bohm. He actually worked for a time period Albert Einstein's laboratory. He was, as a student in his doctoral thesis, he developed some math that allowed them, this is not such a proud accomplishment, but allowed them to build the atomic bomb. At the same time as he was doing his physics work, he was also studying mind, working mind. And
I'm not
his
sure
conclusion,
Michael, but it just breaks up occasionally.
You know, we had that problem last week, and I went out and got a new microphone, a new headset just for that problem. I'm not sure what's going on. It's breaking. Sorry.
It is breaking up quite a lot.
Really? It's not good.
I don't get a word.
Okay, I'm going. Give me just a second. I'm going to dial into the show with my phone. See if that's it.
While everyone's waiting, just breathe.
I have a question.
Michael, muted.
Okay, there we go. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah.
A little bit of feedback.
Yes, let me just
much better.
Good. Okay. Give me a second and I'll
I think you
shut down the sound here on my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Technology is so great when it works.
Absolutely.
There we go. That should get rid of feedback.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yep.
Yeah,
Very good.
Oh, that's
All
good.
right. So let's see. Before we go to the question, there was a thought I was on before we got interrupted. Somebody
Yeah,
making.
I had the question. In that moment, you or I asked myself, what is the feeling? I could not really identify the feeling so quick. I had some guilt and fear, but it was not clear, the clear feeling. I don't know how to get the feeling so quick.
Well, there's no time frame that you have to do anything with this worksheet. So whatever time it takes. But if you got guilt and fear, I would suggest when I do worksheets, I always have a stack of at least a dozen or so blanks. And so when you're doing this worksheet and you find two different emotions going on, guilt and fear, then and number 1B, I'd put guilt on one worksheet, and then I'd go to a second worksheet and I'd put fear. And I'd do a worksheet on each of those emotions. The same way when we get down to the thoughts, you'll find that there's a thought disorder that produces guilt. And that thought will be one thing. There's a different thought disorder that produces fear, and that will be a different one. And so you want to do a separate worksheet for each emotion and each negative thought that you find. And that will lead into, in order for the mind to produce, when you think about it, I sit here in my office, my brain tells me I can see the shelves over here, and I can see the laptop, and I can see the light and the piece of art and the whiteboard, and the lights on the ceiling and the fan, that I see all those things outside of me. And the truth is, I don't see any of those things with my eyes. My brain has to generate all of that in order for me to see it. There's a huge amount of underlying data that has to move in order to produce any given reality, whether it's a wonderful one or whether it's a very sad and painful one. And our emotions key us into different parts of the mind that produce this end result that we call the world we see and the way we experience emotions around it.
Wow. Okay, I understand. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I was in the middle of talking about David Bohm. So David Bohm is a physicist, and he's studying the mind at the same time as he's doing his physics work. And what he came up with was that the problem with human beings is that they think in a way that produces problems in their minds or in their lives, produces pain in their lives, produces painful experiences for them. And they don't want to inquire about their own thinking. So they go on thinking the way they have been, producing the same result, and wondering, why is this happening to me again, in essence? That was his thesis. And so he created this term, sustained incoherence, as someone who keeps thinking in a certain way, refuses to question their thinking, and keeps on experiencing the same results. So that's where we come up with that idea. Thank you, David Bolton, for that idea of sustained incoherence. So when hostility or fear is moving in the mind, and you don't have to believe anything I'm saying here. The only thing you have to do is work with the tool and watch what happens. You'll come to your own direct experience of whether the things that I'm saying are true or not. But in order to experience the process, you don't have to believe any of it. You do have to, of course, do the process. So hostility or fear moving within the mind means that the mind is using corrupt data to produce the world that you see, the world that you're experiencing. So I don't need to go and try to figure out what Charlie did or Harry did or Bill did or anybody else. I just need to know that inside of me, there's some form of hostility or fear moving, and therefore I'm in sustained incoherence. I'm in a thought disorder that's producing this result. And when I understand that, then I can simply drop right into the part of me that's in need of healing and bring healing, bring forgiveness to that part of me. Forgiveness meaning the removal of content that doesn't belong. So if I have a disturbing construct in me, there's sustained incoherence behind it. And I want to come to the point where I uncover that and bring healing to that. And the rest of the worksheet is about how to do that. Does that make sense?
Well, you don't have to believe in it. You just do the worksheet and it'll show it for itself.
Yeah. And you've identified your emotion in number 1B. So then you'll see that square that's there. Sometimes our emotions come from pre-verbal experiences where we don't have words to really express them. So that's there just to be able to draw just a simple line drawing, a representation of what those feelings are.
To draw the emotion then. The understand work?
Yeah, I am here.
Draw the emotion. And it says, if I'm in pain, my thinking is an error. And breathe. Draw whatever comes to mind of that emotion.
Good breath.
And just let us know when you've finished yours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In my story, my reality is that once they name the object of your attention. It's the object of your attention.
So who or what is it that you're focused on here?
Who or what? Okay, my children, actually.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite tongue-in-cheek lines in my workshop is that having children is like having your unconscious mind hang out in true living color and Dolby sound. Everything you've never dealt with, they're going to play out and bring up for you.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because they're made of the same genetics as we are. And so they're playing out what's in us that we've passed on to them in many cases.
Absolutely.
And then when they play that out, of course, it comes back to give us the opportunity to learn forgiveness.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Just write the date. Today's date is 22nd. And this is, you work for this first worksheet on this.
Mm-hmm.
And then my emotional upset level before, so is it from 0 to 10, that is it, the heartbreak from 0 to 10. How high?
I'm going to put it a 9 at the moment because I'm still quite traumatized.
This is going to be powerful then.
I hope so. I'm putting myself, making myself very vulnerable with this. So no risk, no gain. Huh?
So we'll invite you to take a look at all the faces on the screen that are here with you, that are here to hold a space of love for you, to process through that for all of us, because there's none of us that's any different than you are.
Thank you.
So thank you for your willingness.
Pleasure.
If they are the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain?
Mm. Do we repeat this or do you just think about it?
Well, you can, if you're doing this on your own, you might take each step and read it aloud. I've had people who do it in front of the mirror. I have people who don't use the written worksheet. They keep a journal and they actually have one blank and they actually write the whole worksheet out every time that they do it. That they found that to be a powerful way to do it. So whatever you end up feeling as you practice with it, whatever you end up feeling comfortable with will be the best way for you to do it.
I'll read it anyway. If they are the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? Breathe.
One day, the truth is only my thoughts cause my emotional upset.
The truth is only my thoughts cause my emotional upset. Breathe.
So there's.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just throwing. There's an exercise in the live workshop that I do at this step when I'm doing the worksheet, and I invite people to close their eyes and allow themselves to go through a series of feelings or emotions. And so, first of all, just let yourself for a moment feel sadness. Invite everybody to participate in this. Just allow yourself to feel sadness. And notice where that sadness is in your form, in your physiology. Breathe into the area that sadness resides. Tap into active present love. And breathe that love into the space in your body where you're feeling that upset or that pain. And let it soften and let it go. And then for a moment, allow yourself to go to the emotion of anger. Notice where in your physiology you're feeling that anger. Move toward the energy of love. Tap into the energy of active love. Breathe into that space in your physiology and replace that anger with love. And then for a moment, allow yourself to feel fear. Once again, notice where in your physiology you're feeling the fear. Tap into the presence of love and breathe love into that part of your body. Intensify and focus in that presence of love, and then just notice what you had to do in order to move from one feeling to another to another. What had to happen in order for you to do that, Melinda?
Just, oh gosh. I mean, I think of a sad situation or,
So you have a thought.
Angry. Yeah, I had a thought to make me angry and a thought to make me fearful. But I was also very much concentrating on what was going on in my body.
Right. Good. So I'm going to offer a different interpretation. My offering would be that the thought you thought is what produced the anger in each case. And that's why when you change your thought, you can go from anger to sadness to fear to hate to vengeance. You can do 1,000 different things just by changing what the thought is. And so that's the next thought here is the thoughts I use to cause my emotions. So look up at number 1B, that whichever one you selected that you're going to work on for this worksheet. What's the thought you have to think in order to feel that emotion?
I thought I am rejected.
Okay. Is that where the heartbreak, is that the emotion that you're working on? So then the thought I use to cause my heartbreak is that I've been rejected. So I'd mark that in that blank.
Okay.
And I'll turn it back to you, Yinka.
I want to punish by. I want to punish 1C by.
Want to punish 1C.
So who did you name in number 1C as the object of attention?
My children.
So is it all your children? Both? I mean,
Both.
Is it one of your children? Is there specific going on here?
Yeah, they both, for different reasons at different times, have estranged me. So they've stopped contact with me. It's complicated after a divorce, and but yeah, but it's also to do with the things you said, unresolved trauma in my life. I think that has triggered it as well.
Yes. Okay. So is there a punishment thought toward? Have you got one of your children in mind? As your children in general?
Yeah, I think about my son because I had just a very traumatic event with him in June, after which he walked out and said, "You've lost your son." So this is the most traumatic for me at the moment.
Okay.
My daughter's not spoken to me for about 3 years now, more or less. So I want to punish my children.
Let's go with, you specifically mentioned the son is who's in mind.
Yeah.
So be specific here. So what's the punishment thought you have toward him?
Or self.
Well, we're actually going to look at both.
Okay.
So at this point, the punishment toward your son would be what? I mean, do you want to yell and scream? Do you want to?
My punishment towards him would be
breathe.
Yeah, probably not agreeing to his demands, to his money demands.
So you're going to refuse to cooperate with him?
Money. He wants me to sell my house and give him the money.
Okay. So your punishment thought is to withhold money from him? Or to not, or is it closer to think not cooperate with his wishes?
Probably not cooperate with his wishes. It's very manipulative. So
okay. So then I want to punish him by not cooperating.
Yeah.
Jot it down. And what's happening with your breath as you think about that?
It's getting stuck, actually. This is with my trauma at the moment. It is getting stuck. I do need to breathe.
Yeah. Say again, Yinka?
Then when she writes it, breathe, because she's holding it.
I know. Okay, I've written that.
How do you want to punish self?
Oh, ending it all. You know, just like not being here anymore. Just like, if that's what they want, you know. The implosion, self-loathing or self-deprecation. I think self-blame. I think.
So you just named 3 different worksheets on self there.
Okay.
Self-deprecation, self-blame, self-destruction.
Yeah.
Each of those would be a separate worksheet to do. So over on the side of the page in the notes, or if you've got a separate notebook, I'd mark those down, future worksheets. Self-deprecation. So this would be a worksheet where you would name yourself as number 1C, and then do it around self-deprecation, self-destruction, self-blame. Each of those would be worksheets to start to work out those unconscious dynamics in yourself that go into making your brain's picture of who you are. And for each of us, we all have a picture like that. And that's what 2,000 years ago, when they said, in order for you to live, you've got to die. That picture is false. That picture's got to go. That self that's based in thought disorders has to be removed. And it's forgiveness that removes that self, so that there's then a space for the truth of who we are to incarnate in this form. So it sounds like this is opening the space for a lot of work on that self that you've been trained that you are, that you've thought that you are, but really isn't the truth about you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a perpetual feeling at all. It's been triggered, but it isn't how I normally feel about myself. It's this trauma that's triggered this feeling, but maybe it was underlying there before. I don't know.
Well, one of my, another of my favorite tongue-in-cheek lines in my workshops is, the purpose of life is to kick you right square in the limitation. The purpose of life is to send you somebody who knows exactly how to touch that part of you that you hold in yourself that is most self-destructive. And oftentimes it's our children that give us that gift, because they're so attuned, the roots of that same thing is in them. And at the point where you're ready to start to deal with it, they're the ones who are most likely going to show up and give you the gift of showing it to you.
I agree.
And I'll just throw out something. It's probably irrelevant, doesn't have anything to do with anybody. But do you think your mother or your father ever had any of these experiences with you?
My mother had a lot of trauma, and I think, you know, in terms of epigenetics and whatnot, I do think that there is something about the, you know, gene modification and so on, that has come, that is part of this whole, this is what I'm looking into. I do think it's part of the story.
Cool, good. So again, pick one punishment thought towards self for this worksheet and make a note in your notebook for future worksheets, what you're looking at, these stuff about self that, as you say, no, they're not what's normally there. I can usually keep myself distracted. You know, in fact, the number one drug of this culture is busyness.
Yeah.
And we can keep ourselves distracted with busyness, so we don't ever have to look there until somebody shows up that triggers that into activity and brings it back to awareness. Once I recognize that it's there, then I can choose to go to work on it and eradicate it, so I don't have to wait for somebody to show up and bring it up in me again. But as long as that self-deprecating energy is there, as long as that self-destructive energy is there, literally, it is an energy. The reason you can have a thought about it is because it's energy, and by definition, energy is motion. And everything that is in motion sets up an energy wave. And that energy wave carries the original signature of the thought that created it. And so everything that we hold, especially that we've never dealt with, literally sets up a high energy wave. And it doesn't matter where in the world that thought has to go to bring somebody who knows how to resonate it for us. They're going to show up. All matter is transparent to that energy wave. I actually used to keynote at a conference called Global Sciences. And 1 year, a 23-year senior scientist from IBM named, let me get to his name, Marcel Vogel showed up. And he had a camera called a Delaware camera. And what he demonstrated in his presentation at Global Sciences was that with this camera, it's a camera that you could tune so that you attuned it to specific frequencies. And he showed that he could take a picture of the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought. So everything is in us and never been resolved, especially if we've never wanted to deal with it. And every time it comes up, we push it down. We put more energy into it, which means we send a stronger signal out. And that signal, again, all matter is transparent to it. It's going to find somebody who has brain cells that resonate, and it's going to motivate them to move toward us and interact with us out of what that resonates in them. And that's our opportunity to learn forgiveness. It's a gift that the universe gives us. So we'll stop destroying ourselves. What you're not able to tell yourself the truth about, what you're not able to look at directly in the face, is literally the energies that they are clearly the energies that cause our diseases and ultimately death. So life says, I don't like you killing yourself, so I'm going to send you somebody that's going to show you what you need to work through. But what happens is we deny ownership for what moves in us. And by denying ownership, we dissociate from that part of our own minds. We cut ourselves off from it, and we create an unconscious condition in ourselves. And then the person who we've drawn with that unconscious energy shows up, does a behavior that resonates that energy in us, and we then use that dissociated energy in ourselves to build our brain's image of them. So they show up in our face with our problem attached, and we think it's their problem. But then, of course, when you ask that question we asked earlier, if they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? You got to start to go, oh yeah, I've been through this one 87 different times with 42 different people. Maybe I'm lying to myself when I say it's all them. Maybe it's about me because I'm the only one that was there every time. And I'm the one who has the pain. When you engage in actual forgiveness, what happens is, instead of seeing those dissociated energy patterns projected into our brain's image of others and believing that it's theirs, we get to collapse those constructs in the mind, those false constructs. And when you do, and you'll see how that happens as the worksheet unfolds, you get back into direct relationship with what you've dissociated from. So now, instead of putting it into our brain's image of someone else, we get back to direct relationship with it. And what we can come back into direct relationship with that we hold inside of ourselves, and it may be 10 generations old, when we bring that forward in the presence of love, that unconscious underlying energy is transmuted. And that's where forgiveness happens. That's where you're freed of it. And as long as we stay in denial, as long as we're talking about how it's all everybody else's fault that we're feeling this way, we keep dissociating from that. Life is going to come and pound harder and harder and harder on the door until I finally go, I'm feeling this, it must be mine, and come back into direct relationship with it while love is present. And when that happens, that's when that transmutation takes place that changes the underlying dynamic in myself. That may be, as I say, 10 generations old.
Wow.
And breathing, of course, is a part of the key. All right. Good work. So we're through step one, Yinka.
And which one would she choose for, or
well, yeah, we need to pin. I think the uppermost feeling I have at this moment, but I've been going through waves of feelings, but at this moment is probably a sense of remorse. That's
the punishment. Which punishment?
The punishment, yeah. So that, oh yeah. So the punishment would be self-blame, I suppose.
Yeah, when you started this conversation out, it was self-destruction.
Yeah, I did.
It's a little heavier now. So I would make a note again on future worksheets for self-blame and also remorse. See, as you're talking, you're revealing to yourself, your speech is revealing to you where other parts of your work. Remember, I spoke about, in order for me to see, the picture, the light, the shelves, the fan, a tremendous amount of energy is moving under the surface for my brain to produce that detailed picture of what I think is going on in the room. And all of your languaging, if you go back and listen, listen intently to this session with your notebook in hand and look at each word that you perhaps would normally gloss over in your life. Go, oh, remorse. So there's another piece of work for me to do on remorse. So our language, Shakespeare says, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. If I started paying attention to my words will tell me exactly what's in my unconscious. It's in need of healing. And remorse is another big piece of the puzzle here. And if you think back, if you think about your power person, which was likely mom or dad, did you ever watch them in remorse that was unresolvable for them?
Can't say. Well, no. Unresolvable. I can't say that. Can't identify a time particularly, no.
Okay. Well, just questions to hang out with and see what moves.
So then for this part, she does self-destruction.
That's where I would go now, yes. So that would be the blank and punishment towards self.
Then I release and surrender myself, my emotions, my emotions to my children, my story, my thoughts, and punishment to love.
So the way to do this step is, there's a checkbox there for each. So and basically what we're doing is we're going through each aspect of number one. So the first name that shows up is myself. So I put a checkbox there beside myself, and I release and surrender myself to love. And then my emotions, I release and surrender my anger, my sadness, my fear, whatever it is, to love. I release and surrender the thought, whatever the thought is I've uncovered, to love. I release and surrender my story to love. And I release and surrender my punishment of whoever this isn't that I'm doing this worksheet on, and self to love. So you go through each of those steps separately and checking off. I release myself to love. I release this anger, sadness, fear, whatever it is, to love. And, for humans, it's interesting. There's an area in the brain called Broca's area, and that's where the speech center is. And it's right next to emotions. Most of the emotional content in our lives and most of what we tend to believe about ourselves and about life came into our structure as humans through words. And at first, this verbal release process may seem to be a little, what's that going to do? But as you practice with it, when you discover an energy in you that you say, this doesn't belong here, verbally directing it out of the structure is very powerful. Because most of it came in through words. We watched others around us. We heard their speech, especially their destructive speech toward us. We took that on. We listened to it. We probably spoke it to ourselves. We said it about ourselves in crisis moments. And then it moved into what would be a course called Laws of Living. And in that, we talk a lot about what we call regulatory speech. Then it moves into silent speech within us. And if that silent speech is experienced to reduce stress, then that becomes part of what we call regulatory speech. It's habitual, unconscious speech. And what we want to do as part of the forgiveness process is dig up that habitual, unconscious speech that we rarely let ourselves stop and look at or deal with, and consciously, purposely remove it and work through it. So verbal release, as you practice with it, is very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Let's breathe. So 2A, I choose to honor truth and willingly face and process out all the disease-producing energies from all my generations.
And then if you just hang with that for a minute and recognize, as I said earlier, everything the mind produces out of hostility or fear is from corrupt data, and therefore it's untrue. It's a lie. But when we're in pain, most of us like being able to tell the story about how somebody else is the cause of our pain. See, it's their fault. It's got nothing to do with me. And I tell myself that disempowering lie, and I love the lie because I'm off the hook. It's interesting. We live in a world, and a lot of people are talking about fear of the universal religion that's being enforced by some boogeyman somewhere, when most of the population of the earth is already engaged in the universal religion. And the universal religion is that of blame, how it's all everybody else's fault. And so when we love our lies, we like to tell them so that we don't ever have to look inside. It's settled, you see, it's their fault. 2A here is a choice to step up and honor truth. I'm willing to be with the truth. Gee, I've been through this feeling. I feel so blessed that the universe reserved the title of this book for me. I was actually living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 30-some years ago. And there was a magazine there, a singles magazine, and they asked me to write an article on relationships. And I'm kind of a slow writer. I spend a lot of time in my writing. And I was doing a final review before I was turning into them. And I, without really realizing it, had written the opening to this publication was, why is this happening to me again? Why are all people the same? And I looked at that line, I went, oh my God, that's the title of my book. Mm-hmm. and the title was available. It's such an obvious title. And virtually everybody in the world gets a sad grin on their face when they hear that title, because virtually everybody's been there. Why is this happening to me again? Because I'm a creator and I set it up. So here I'm going to honor truth, and I'm willing to face everything that's in me and process out all disease-producing energies for my generations from all of my relations. The Native Americans, I sort of borrowed that one from the Native Americans, and they, when they go into ceremony, have a phrase that they use, matakuyasin, which in essence, a loose translation would be for all my relations, for everyone, knowing that, I'm not doing this just for me, I'm doing this for my whole bloodline.
Yeah.
And of course, go ahead.
When I first started doing this work with Yinka, the other worksheet we do in the morning,
right.
And I did one with you, didn't I, Yinka? And then I've done a couple on my own. And before when I first started doing them, and then, quoting this, willing to go through the pain of healing, actually, this trauma hadn't occurred, with my son. That happened in June. Right. And I'm trying to think, I was at the time, willing to go through the pain of healing, and wondering if there's a connection, between stating
when
that.
You're ready. when you're ready and you're willing, it's going to start to move. That's exactly what happens.
It probably, had to happen for my ultimate healing, stuff that, I had unresolved. So it could be all connected.
Who knows? Your son may
prepared to have this much pain, I might have said no.
Yeah, I hear you. But who knows? Perhaps your son is a fully conscious, realized being. There's not a manipulative bone in his body at all. He's just conscious and here to say, Mom, I'm going to be the sacrifice. I'm going to bring this up for you. I'm the one that's here to help heal you. Who knows?
That's a lovely way of thinking.
Yeah.
Loving way of thinking. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when we start dealing with these generational patterns, the Native Americans use this mataquiasan for all my relations, but the word generations in there also comes from the ancient Western tradition of Judaism. You remember there's a story about this group of people who get lost in what essentially is about a 35 square mile area, and they're lost there for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a group of people that's proven they know astronomy pretty well. They know the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. If you're in the middle of a 35 square mile hot sandy place, how long would it take you to follow the sun to get out? That 40 years in the desert was not about being lost in a hot sandy place. That word desert is a code word for the unconscious. Most people at or about the age of 40, before they start to suspect that they're involved in their lives and maybe it's about them and it's time for them to do some work. And if you read that whole metaphor, that allegory, you'll notice that the way that group of people, that whole desert experience was undone, where they moved from the desert, the place of suffering, to what was called the promised land, which I'd offer as just conscious co-creation. What had to happen for them to get out of the desert? What they said was the old generation had to die off. Now, that didn't mean that everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the causes held in the mind from the generations had to go before we could step out of unconscious creation and step into the promised land where we're designed to be conscious creators. So each of us has to go and spend our time in the desert. The most productive way I know for someone to do that is through this worksheet process, because it allows you to go directly to the root of what needs to be processed out and move it out very rapidly. And anyone who will simply follow the steps in the process will go through that. We'll start to more and more be able to take hold of those generational patterns and remove them from their structures. So you're doing this, yes, for all your relations, for all of humanity. In fact, energetically, each person who goes through this opening, each person who does their work opens the energy window a little wider for the next person who's ready to go through it.
Interesting. Okay.
And then 2B, Yinka?
2B, I willingly go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing.
Do you want to take a shot? And of course, you want to make sure you breathe there, everybody.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a shot, Yinka, in describing what the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing are?
See, a simple way that I look at it is in when you've got a cut, like a paper cut, and you put it under cold water for it to heal, you've got to feel the sting, to clean it out. Sometimes it'll just create that sting for it to come up and heal.
Okay.
That's the simple explanation.
So do you remember on a physical level what the healing process looks like?
So is that when if it goes down with pain, it's got to come up with pain?
Right. As it went into the structure, when you think of the so-called body-mind unit as an energy system, something goes into the system, symptomatically expresses. If it's energy that's proper for humans, then it expresses as joy and aliveness and, hey, this is great. If it's something that doesn't belong in the system, then it's experienced as some sort of pain or trauma. So any symptom that was created on the way in, as you get vital enough and start to bring the energy back out and face it and throw it out, symptomatically it's going to be the same. And you're going to get to experience the symptoms of what some of your generations have been through that maybe weren't your direct experience. So on a physical level, it's any kind of physical symptom you've ever had and low energy. As the structure, as the energy system starts to take apart those old structures of trauma, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of power. And then to restructure and realign the energy system on target takes even more energy. And so that's when somebody, you know, they're flying high, I feel great, everything's wonderful. And then all of a sudden, you know, somebody gets up the next morning and they're lower than a snake's belly. What happened? What's wrong? I felt so great last night. Well, what happened is you hit a new level of vitality, and now you're ready to go through the next layer of healing that needs to happen. And so low energy happens. And probably one of the biggest things missing in our culture in real healing processes is that people just don't give themselves the time to be still, to be quiet, to listen, and to heal. When that low energy strikes, that's when a lot of people are like, oh, I gotta go, or give me a scotch, or knock me out with a pill, rather than, okay, I'm ready to do my work. So willingness, it's kind of like willingness is the cosmic grease. So that's the physical. Now, how about the mental, Yinka?
Yeah.
On a mental level, healing looks like any kind of negative thought you've ever had and confusion. You know, when you're bringing in truth and it's confronting that which is not truth, when the two meet and collide, the result is confusion. It's a very important step to understand in the healing process and to allow, to recognize, yeah, I'm engaging in truth and I'm looking at some old stuff and I'm allowing that to surface. And literally, you know, just like I use an example of, I've got a whiteboard and I shine a red light and a blue light and a green light on it. Now, we know scientifically there's no such thing as red, blue, or green. Red, blue, or green are just interpretations the brain gives it. You know, some people are colorblind. It means their brain interprets certain frequencies differently than other people's brains do. So if I have clarity on red, it's literally a frequency, a particular frequency in the electromagnetic spectrum. Blue is a different shape and green is another. If I shine all three of them on one spot, though, I'm going to get a confused mix of those three energies. It's going to be confusion. When I'm pouring in truth and I'm surfacing those things I've lied to myself about, those error energies, and they meet, the same thing happens. They mix, the energies literally mix, and it's a confused state. And that's where you want to breathe, keep calling in the presence of love, and allow yourself to process through those energetic patterns. So that's what it looks like on a mental level. And then the emotional level, Yinka? What's the healing process look like? Remember? Looks like any kind of negative feeling one has ever had, and depression. That's what healing looks like. Now, one of the reasons why people sometimes start doing these worksheets and then are like, oh no, I don't want to do that, is because they don't want to face what's in them. But what you can't face, you can't heal.
Yeah.
So this step is, you know, early in the worksheet to remind myself, yeah, I'm willing. Whatever moves, I know it's not permanent. You know, sometimes the mind wants to trick us into believing that whatever's moving at this moment, oh, it's here forever. I'll never be finished with it. You'll be finished with it. You keep bringing in and pouring in the active presence of love. Keep tapping into that and breathing, and those energetic patterns of hostility and fear and rage and guilt and grief and pain and drama will process out of the system. That's the forgiveness process. So breathing and willingness go hand in hand. Cosmic grease, we used to call it. Willingness. Want to go ahead and move forward, Yinka?
Free my desire, the constructive result, the exact goal that drives my perception is that 1C, which is your son, my trigger. So what is my desire?
My desire is...
What's happening with your breath right now?
Well, I'm not breathing. I'm not breathing it out properly.
Okay.
Short breaths, too short.
So just take a moment. Yeah, take a moment and be with the breath. Just let yourself breathe for a moment here. This is some pretty deep energy. And you'll notice that as long as everybody in your life is doing what you want them to do, unless you're a generally miserable person, you're pretty happy with everybody. You notice the only time that we're upset with people, generally, is when they're not fulfilling a goal that we hold for them. And that's a really key turnaround step for actual forgiveness to occur. And that's because, when we started out, I said the brain constructs the world that you see with your brain, not with your eyes. There's some Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, you're hooked up to electrodes and they're measuring brain cell firings, and there are 10,000 brain cells firing. The max amount of data that goes into that structure called reality is 9 bits. Very tiny little piece of what's moving in the unconscious and the subconscious. Conscious is just that little tiny bit. And when you recognize that, something has to determine which 9 bits of data your mind is going to use to produce your perception. What determines it? What drives that process? The reason step 3 is so important in the forgiveness process is because the driver for perception is our goals. So what we're doing with number 3, looking at this situation that you're working on with your son, there's a goal that you hold for him that he's not achieving for you. It's a constructive result. Now, oftentimes people will talk about and think about and look at what they don't want. Oh, I've got somebody in my life that's being abusive. I just don't want them to be abusive anymore. That's never going to work in moving into the forgiveness process. You have to look at the constructive result that's driving the mind to use pain content to produce this pained perception. So if you look at specifically in this situation with your son, with what you described was going on with him that happened back in June, what would be the most precise expression of the goal that you hold for him? Your desire for him, the constructive result.
My desire for him is for him to find his true purpose and fulfill it.
Okay. That's a good desire you've got as a mom for your son, but we're not talking about that now. We're talking about in this situation, where this whole event that you're working on here, what's the goal?
Yeah,
the constructive result.
The simplest way is reconciliation.
Okay.
Forgiveness, mutual forgiveness, reconciliation.
That sounds like it's probably something that will come in a later worksheet, but at this stage, working on the situation that occurred with him, I think it's going to be something more specific. That goal of, oh, well, I just want, reconciliation with him is, I think, a substitute for, or a way around. It's a way to get away from this issue that you're working on. Oh, I just want reconciliation with him. Well, yeah, but in this situation where he said what he said to you, in that instant, what was it you wanted from him? And it might be, I suspect it would be more like, well, I wanted him to speak to me lovingly, gently, respectfully. I wanted him to acknowledge me as his mom. I wanted him to cherish me. I wanted him to make our relationship more important than this money he wants. You want to look at, in each situation where you're doing a worksheet, what specifically is it that you want from whoever that object of attention is. Moving into I want reconciliation is getting way ahead of yourself. And by so doing, you're leaving out some of the underlying steps that need to be covered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you look at what you've written in number one, just kind of read over quickly in your brain the highlight of what that situation is about in number one. If you were sitting with your son and all of that has just happened, in that instant, what would you want from him?
Understanding.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So that would be the goal then, would be, that's what you put in number 3 here. The constructive result I want is I want understanding. And then as you think about that understanding, you want to breathe.
We're all breathing here.
Yeah, we're breathing with you. Is that clear for everybody what we're looking for in number 4? We're not looking for, the salve of all your wounds with someone when we're doing a worksheet. We're looking specifically in this situation you've described. What is it? What's the constructive result that you want from whoever the object of attention is in the worksheet? Make sense?
That's really helpful, I think.
And the reason for that is because that's what's driving the pain. Now, of course, you look at what you want from your son. That's a perfectly wonderful thing. And, that's great. So why would I do anything with that? Because what we're going to do in a few minutes is we're going to invite you to cancel that goal. In the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag, and it literally translates to cancel. And most people say, but that's a wonderful thing that I want for my son. Why would I cancel that? What's wrong with that goal? And a lot of people come away from this worksheet thinking, well, having goals, you're not supposed to have any, or there's something wrong with them. No, we're not saying that at all. Goals are wonderful things. Without them, you'd be dead. They're required. Goals are necessary for life to happen. But the goal that you're identifying here is a goal that you recognize that when you load it in your mind, it accesses pain. Pain that maybe you've been successful at hiding from yourself your whole life. You're looking for the goal specifically. It causes your mind to generate a painful construct. And then what we're going to do with that goal is we're going to remove it. Not because there's anything wrong with it. We're going to remove it so that construct collapses. And here's what happens. When it collapses right down into the unconscious and gives you access to the underlying hidden part of the mind. That's what we're looking to get at. We're looking to get the hidden part of the mind to come forward, to make a space on a conscious level for it to come forward. Now, if your mind's filled with that 9 bits of data about your son, you can't look at the unconscious part of yourself in that. So the more specifically you identify exactly the goal that you hold, the constructive result that you want, when we get down to number 5, where you cancel that goal and collapse that pain perception, you're going to have access to parts of your mind you've maybe never seen directly in your life. Maybe hasn't been seen directly in 10 generations of your bloodline. And you're going to be able to have that come forward, and to come forward in the presence of love where there's going to be dissolution of the pain around it. So that's what we're looking to do. That's why the identification of the goal is so important, and what we're ultimately going to do with it. Does that make sense? Does that leave anybody with any questions? Yinka, does that bring it home for you?
Yeah, it totally brings it home for me. And it reminds me of the worksheets I've done before.
Cool. So does that leave you with any questions, Melinda?
No, that's
okay.
It's okay.
All right. Back to Yinka.
I choose love, my essence, which stirs love in everyone involved.
So love is an energy that when you hold to it through resonance, awakens the love in others. There's a little story there that I think you've got. Yinka, you want to go to that screen?
Rose and the butterfly. Imagine we have a rose and a butterfly and we give them each an ego. They meet and fall in love and have a wonderful time together. Then one day, the butterfly flies away because the rose thinks there was nothing more important than the love of the butterfly. It uproots itself to give chase. What is going to happen to the rose? It dies. Why does it die? Because it made something else more important than staying connected to its source. Anytime we make something else more important than staying connected to our source, our being love, then we have disconnected and tend our own death.
Yeah, as with the rose uprooting itself, of course, disconnected from its source, it's not going to survive for long. And so it is with us. Whenever we make anything more important than that connection to love within us. There's another story that goes hand in hand with this that I like to share when I do the live workshop. And it's a story about, a true story actually, about two young men in London who went to Harrods department store. This goes back years ago. And they had a cub lion for sale. And these two guys bought this lion, brought it home, started to raise it. There was a local abbey nearby, and they allowed them to take the lion and play on the property of the ground. And the lion got to a size where they just couldn't keep it anymore. And they contacted a reserve in Africa and arranged to have the lion taken to that reserve and released. They tagged the lion and tracked it. About a year later, these two young men decided they wanted to go visit their lion. The lion's name was Christian. They decided they wanted to go and visit. So they contacted there's a video on YouTube. If you look up Christian the lion, you'll see the story, true story. And the people at the preserve were like, you don't understand. This is a wild beast. If you went out to confront it, it would tear you to shreds. And they're like, we want to come visit our lion. So they go to Africa. In the video, they show, the guy who's guiding them has got a high power rifle. They're going to have to destroy this animal. And they've got a tracker on it, so they know approximately where it is. So these two guys are out there calling, in the jungle, Christian, calling this lion. And then there's a shot of this lion up in the hill, and it starts down the hill toward them, and it's huge. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, I hope this is the right lion, because this lion just takes off, bounds toward them like, it's over, and jumps up on them like a kitten. I mean, literally, its paws up on their shoulders, hugging them. They're just long lost friends have found each other, which, it's a pretty cool story. But the piece of the story that's relative here about functioning as active present love rather than functioning out of our hostility and fear is that at the same time as they find this lion, his mate is with them. And his mate is a totally wild lioness. And you'll remember the lioness is the huntrix. So down the hill with this lion comes this wild female lion. And to me, what this speaks of is the presence of love that these two men had and that this lion had with them. That the wild lioness came over to these two guys who, if she ran in the wild, she'd tear them to shreds, ran over to them and rubs against them like a kitten and lets them pet her.
Wow.
When I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. When active present love is there, it moves that energy in any and everyone around me. And if I keep coming back to that, now people sometimes have all kinds of garbage to break through, but when I choose to come back with that and come back with that, it's a law. It's called the law of resonance. You know, if I have I use an example, I have a middle C tuning fork and I hit it on the desk and it starts to vibrate, and I put it in front of a second middle C tuning fork. The second tuning fork doesn't have a choice. The law of resonance, law of energy exchange says this second tuning fork is going to start to move. It has to happen. When I choose love, when I choose to stand in the created essential nature of what I am, that newborn energy, no matter how somebody else is lost in pain and trauma and craziness, vile, vicious, whatever it is, that presence of love has to start to move in them. And if I hold to that long enough, often enough, and deep enough, it's going to start to move in whoever's present in my world. You know, if a wild lioness comes down and, you know, rubs against these guys like she's a huge kitten and lets them pet her, you know, there's something to the presence of that active love. And you can certainly see it in the video with these two guys.
Must look that one up on YouTube. That's amazing.
It's powerful. It's really, it is pretty amazing.
I'll share it in the WhatsApp group because I've watched it.
Great. Cool. So this step we did before, we asked you to feel different feelings, anger, fear, sadness, and then go to the presence of love. You know, allow yourself for a moment each time you do the worksheet to simply breathe and go into the presence of love in you before you take the next step. You know, I can go back some 30 or so years ago doing this work and developing this work. And, you know, I had a center, I was doing intensive workshops, and people would come and we'd see some magnificent healing happen in people. And then there'd be other people that just, you know, nothing changed for them. And so there was a fairly long time where I'm asking myself the question, what's the key here? What is it that creates this healing that some people experience and others don't? And one day it was made clear to me that two things have to occur simultaneously in order for healing to happen. One, love has to be, that's the moving force. It has to be conscious, active, and present. And when I'm talking about love here, I'm talking about the presence of our essential nature has to act alive and present, not the mamby-pamby definition of love that our cultures have of sexual athletics or sacrifice, you know, put your head on the chopping block and show you love me. Nothing to do with that, but that we have to be in the practice of actually bringing active, present love, the human life that we have, forward into our physiology and holding it there actively. So what I was shown in that quest was that has to be present. And then the veil, you know, when they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, they weren't talking about tearing apart a purple curtain in a church, as have you believe. This is the temple. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. If love is present and that veil opens, and that energy that is based in trauma comes forward directly, rather than being projected into our brain's image of someone else, comes forward directly. When those two things meet, active present love and trauma, then trauma dissolves. Trauma spontaneously is transmuted. That's the core of all healing. You know, oftentimes people are handed a pill, a deadly pill by a doctor, and they heal in spite of the deadly pill, because the doctor is standing there as active, present love, and they feel safe enough to let whatever needs to open, and they move through it. And that's when spontaneous or instant healing happens. So this step is about being in the practice. And I suggest that people make a practice of this every day. You know, first thing in the morning for me, before I get up out of bed, I just take a few minutes and just get connected and cultivate my experience of myself as love, the presence of love in my physiology. and be in that experience. Cultivate that experience every day. Every time you think of it, cultivate that so that it becomes your natural state for love to be active and present in you. And so the idea of step 4 here is to bring that active and then go into the core of the forgiveness process, which is number 5. Does that make sense for everybody? Any questions, thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes.
When I'm in, let's say, when I'm angry, and then I start to practice what you said just before, am I then really able to achieve that love, or to put that love, or do I put the love in the body into the part where the painful energy is, like the anger is here, let's say, and I put then here the love here, and that.
Yes. That's exactly why when we did that experience of go through, let yourself feel sadness, fear, anger, is notice where it is in your physiology, and then go into the practice of bringing love present to that part of your physiology. Yes.
Okay. May I have a second question? Well,
go for it.
Yeah. So for the goal, to let go of the goal, that I have resistance because I do not want to let go of it.
You know what Satan is in Aramaic? The word Satan, you know what it means?
No.
It means Satan is not this dude with the red suited tail and a pitchfork. In Aramaic, the 1st century Aramaic language, the word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. So you'll notice virtually everybody, if you say, well, you know, that's a really wonderful goal. I can see why you want that. Now cancel your need for it. 100% of people go into resistance, and they go into their story, what it is, the way they myth themselves with a lie about why. Well, this has got, look at it, and that literally, most of the world, literally in the Aramaic sense, lives trapped in Satan. The resistor. No, don't make me look at my life. Don't make me be responsible. Don't make me let go of this. And why? Because you should have seen what he did to me. He was so terrible. He was so, and he caused all this in me. And that's the lie.
Yeah. I understand. That I understand. But the resistance in my goal is to a thing, not a person.
Yeah. I understand. Resistance in all of its forms is Satan. I have a goal. Why should I don't want to let go of this beautiful, wonderful goal? Well, you know, I've been watching you. You know, I'm talking to somebody that I know well. You know, I've been watching you for 20 years, and every time I've seen you load that goal that you think is so wonderful, I've watched it go into trauma and pain and have conflict in your relationships. Have you ever noticed that? No. That, well, take a look at your life. That's what you'll see has been happening. And, you know, you ultimately, the next step, once you've got love present, you're going to cancel the goal. You're not canceling the goal because there's something wrong with it. You're not canceling the goal because you can't have it. You're not canceling the goal because you don't want it. You're canceling the goal because every time you put it in your mind, it resonates pain.
Yeah. Oh, because there is a lack. I don't have that now, and I think about it, and then I feel the lack of it, and that causes pain.
Correct. So when you cancel the goal, the pain perception that's in the unconscious that's driven by that goal that becomes your perception, your reality, collapses. And when it collapses, it opens a pathway into your own unconscious where you get to bring the energetic root of the pain forward in the presence of love. This is how to consistently, persistently process out thought disorders from the mind. Daily basis. Look at the goal that's around this pain perception, cancel it, process what's underneath it. And if you're an early adopter, if you're the first one in your family system, you know, I look back, I can't fathom anybody when I look at aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers, cousins, parents, grandparents, great-grand. I can't fathom anybody that had a clue that their pain was about themselves. I mean, I had a family system that was very strongly locked into the religion of blame. And I grew up with that. I understand it well. And it's all a lie. But it's the universal religion today. It's virtually universal.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. Yinka, you want to move into number 5A?
Yes. Please get me there. 5A, when upset, my perception is built out of corrupt data driven by my goal. So that's 3.
So you bring your answer exactly as it is in number 3 down to number 5. Write it in number 5.
The understanding, wanting understanding. You'd write that in there. It is a limiting picture constructed from a max of 9-bit of data out of 10,000 brain cells firing. By cancelling my goal, my replicate mind, reality collapses and gives me direct contact with the denied and dissociated part of my carbon-based energy, which projects and blames others for its content, while holding love conscious, active and present. I now choose to collapse my mind's lie by willingly cancelling my goal, the driver for 1C, my son, wanting understanding.
Okay, so in essence, this statement reviews the whole, everything we've covered up to now. Is recognizing that my reality, what my mind is producing, is built out of corrupt data, and I want to collapse it and get access to the underlying hidden part of it. You know, the thing that's there every time I've been through this, and I want to bring that forward. And so I do that by canceling my goal. In step 4, I brought the love present. Now I might need to, as I'm doing step 5, go back and tap into the love again, tap into the presence of love again, keep calling it forward, because it, you know, it's kind of like there's a battle that often goes on. So I bring love present, I'm really clear, I'm really with it. And then I start looking at this situation I've been writing about number 1, and up comes all this stuff like, oh, I don't want to, and I lose my grip on love. So I'm going to bring love present and allow until I can get both of those things to be moving. And when I bring that hidden part of my mind, the more deeply I can access that. And, you know, when you realize the number of generations that many of these things have been going on, it might take a significant number of worksheets to get to the root, you know, to where I've got the vitality to really handle the root of, you know, something that might have happened to my great-great-great-great-grandmother, you know, 200 years ago. That was so traumatic that, you know, I could hardly even contemplate or think about it. It's going to take building some strength to be able to get to the point of vitality, the level of vitality where I can allow that to come forward, because I will never be able to process through something that has a higher, let's see if we went with a number, that has a higher level of pain than my capacity to hold love present. If I don't have the vitality, if I have the physical, I can say, oh, I want to heal this, I want to heal this, I want to heal this. But, you know, I kind of like having this little bit of hostility, so when somebody gets on my face, I could shoot back at them and then I'm safe. Well, if I'm going to hold on to that hostility, I'm never going to be able to bring the root of it forward and heal it until I'm in a state of willingness to go, I'm at the point where I'm going to give up this hostility because I realize it's a disease and I don't need it anymore. It doesn't protect me at all. My mind has told me the lie, it protects me, but it doesn't. It just gets me into more trauma and pain. So I can only heal, I can only go to the depth of pain and clean it up at the level of vitality I've got to hold the space for it. So in practical terms, if I've got a level 7 toxin, let's say, and I'm at a level 5 vitality, physically, mentally, emotionally, and I can say, I want to handle that level 7 toxin, but there's a built-in protect mechanism within the structure. And if I were to open a level 7 toxicity and I only have a level 5 vitality, literally it could kill me. Body, mind you, not going to allow that to open. I'm not going to get to open that package until I'm at a level 7.5 vitality. And then, you know, I can be rolling along. I've been doing my work for several years and man, things are rocking along. And then I hit that new level of vitality and all of a sudden there's this huge crash in life. This whole big, huge mountain of stuff comes up. And oftentimes I'll go, what's wrong? It's like, no, it's not there's something wrong. You've hit the level of vitality where you can finally crack that open. Now you want to apply all the tools you got. Now you want to hold to present love. Now you want to breathe. Now you want to cancel goals. Now you want to pick up the phone and call your support person. Because you've opened the veil of the temple in a place where previously, maybe for 100 generations, nobody in your bloodline has been able to open at that level of healing.
Wow.
And it's not Dr. Feelgood. It's a pretty deep process.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, good. So that statement is kind of 5A is really the whole thing. You know, I've got corrupt data producing my perception. That's what's driving the process. That limits me. And now what I realize I want to do is I want to come into conscious relationship with that which I've hidden within myself around this issue. How am I going to do that? Again, I'm going to hold love present. I'm going to cancel my goal. So that's the action step. So you'll see in bold letters, while holding love conscious, active, and present. Action. I now choose to collapse my mind's lies by willingly canceling my goal, the driver for number 1C2. So you bring your answer word for word as it is in number 3 down to number 5 here, A, and cancel that goal. So how about just going ahead and doing that?
Is that me or everybody?
Yeah. Go ahead and cancel that goal that you identified, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Good breath. And what's happening?
Just trying to shake it out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Where did your mind go?
Just, I suppose I was kind of thinking of the feeling that I want to achieve and letting go of it.
Okay. And for a minute there, your breath just stopped dead. It was just like boom, like it hit a wall. What was there?
Well, maybe I'm not following through the complete process. I'm still holding some of it inside, not letting it go completely, I think.
And that's okay. You know, this is your first worksheet on this issue. You may end up doing many worksheets on this issue before you process through all the layers of it. Just that I noticed that as you were speaking there was like just this dead stop. And I was wondering what the thought was with that, if you could pinpoint it. I suspect, and it may be, it perhaps wasn't something even cognitive, although oftentimes it is. It always amazes me when people cancel the goal, the memory that surfaces. Was there a memory there?
Yeah, I mean, the breakdown, the breakdown of understanding was very traumatic at the time. So yeah,
the breakdown of understanding of,
the way the drama unfolded with my son in the moment was a very traumatic event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it reminiscent of any other events in your life? That kind of trauma?
Not as extreme, not really. I mean, I think I've always had a big fear of rejection, and I think that was my fear sort of brought upon me.
Okay.
I can't say it was reminiscent of any other major incident in my life. No.
Did that rejection ever play a part in, let's say, your divorce, your marriage?
That's probably too complicated to answer here.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think that probably goes back to some early childhood experiences, like for many of us. So I think that's what I'm working on at the moment, anyway.
Okay, great. Well, there's a type of worksheet that we look at where when you hit a core issue, you find several other. You might remember in Greek mythology, there was a creature called the Hydra, and when they cut the Hydra's head off, several other heads grew out of the stump of the head that was cut off. And so often, and that's another reason for doing the worksheets in writing and keeping a notebook that keeps a record of even the subtle things that come up and making a note of them. And, back with the original process, this forgiveness process, as it was taught 2,000 years ago, they asked the teacher of it, well, how many times do I need to forgive my brother? It's like, I guess once is enough. Is 7 times enough? And the Greeks translate his words as being 7 times 70 is how many times you'll forgive. But in Aramaic, what he said was 77 times 70. And my take on that is what he was saying is, yeah, you're starting into a process, you're opening a part of your mind. And, 7 is a number of completion, 0 is an infinity. You'll do an infinite amount of work around any given issue until you're complete with it. So you'll likely worksheets around this that will tie back into other parts of your life and also perhaps into genetic memories that will surface. There's a particular link that I think Yinka's got in the notes of we did a codependence to interdependence intensive, and there was a woman in it who was getting ready to go to the hospital because of heart problems. And in the intensive, we gave her the assignment of inquiring of her ancestors of what the condition was of their hearts. And when she did this piece of work in the intense, left me in tears. It was so powerful. And then she got on a radio show a couple of days later and shared it, and I was in tears again. It was so powerful. But she touched in with, I believe it was either her grandfather or her great-grandfather. And the man's been dead for decades, but she ended up in a very deep emotional conversation with him about the extreme traumas in his life and the extreme abuse in his life, and ended up processing with her great-grandfather around that trauma. And so, oftentimes we'll open even genetic memories of things that, ostensibly we have no way of knowing, but it's in there. So just, let the willingness flow and be applied to that. So as you do that, you notice again, the little hand at the end of the sentence says breathe as you cancel your goal. And if memories surface, just jot them down. And they again can point to other worksheets that need to be done. Now, if you realize that, there are generations of pain in there, perhaps, how, if we've got this, according to Harvard, 10,000 brain cells are firing 9 bits of data go into perception. And I metaphorically refer to that as the 9-bit mind. How are we going to process through that with 9 bits of data? Well, step 9B actually shows you that there's a helper. Yinka, you want to go into 9B?
Not this one.
Or pardon me, 5B. I said 9, I meant 5. It's 9B in the worksheet in the book. Old brain cells firing.
Yeah. Shall I read this one out?
Yeah, please.
So I cancel my need to be right and make up another story out of these brain cells to hallucinate proof that my fear, hostility-based story, my reality is true. I cancel my need to be right and make up another story.
Yeah, oftentimes the mind gets hooked on it, and even though you work through one piece of it, this step is about being conscious that, I've got to be careful because my mind may want to go back and try to do this number on me again, play this out again. And then in 5B, there's a helper. And Yinka's going to tell us about the helper.
So, Kadusha, am I pronouncing that right?
Say it again.
Ruka Kadusha.
Ruka Kadusha.
Kadusha.
It's actually a very guttural sound. It's the kind of sound your mom told you not to make because you spit on people when you say it. It's actually real guttural. Rucha Kadusha. And the kudsha is of, the D apostrophe is of, and kudsha is the root of the word kosher, which means in Hebrew, Aramaic, it's that which is proper. There are energies that are proper for humans. So what they were saying is, inside of us, if you look at the definition down at the bottom of the page, there is this feminine elemental force in us. It's designed specifically for humans, and it undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. And we could say in our modern, computer brain cells, our computer language, there's a super processor in us that's there to help us and support us. When there's no possible way we could even start to fathom with our little pea brains the whole energy pattern that needs to be cleaned up, this is the space to invite that assistant in. The Rucha Kudsha are the words that the Greeks translated as the Holy Spirit. There's nothing about a disembodied spirit being. In Aramaic, it says that there's, again, in essence, a super processor. There's a power in us. It's feminine in nature. I know a lot of churchianity calls it he, but it's not. That was the patriarchy. He is not accurate. It's she who undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. So what I'm saying, I'm yielding in willingness to this power that resides within me. I don't have to go outside myself and find something or somebody. It's in here. And I've got free will. It will never touch my free will. If I've got this, let's say this hostility that, I keep this in reserve just in case I need it to whack somebody over the head with. Doesn't matter how often I say, I want to get rid of this. I want to get rid of it. If I've got a use for it, my free will is going to apply. It's never going to be removed. But when I step again into willingness, I don't know how to process this, but I'm willing for it to be moved. And that's where I invite Rucha Kudsha. And there's several things, these specifics are the things that over the years I've found most helpful, that I need the most help with. So I'm at, I have inclinations in my mind, and sometimes those inclinations aren't so good. So I'm asking to be inclined toward healing, that I want to go to the mainspring of what moves things in me, and I'm asking it to support me in moving toward healing, to restore me to that newborn essence, to the presence of love. I'm asking to have my denial healed, the tendency to want to live in the religion of blame, and to heal my capacity to generate this emotion that I identified in number 1B. So you bring your answer from 1B down to this blank in number 5B. Help me. Yeah. Yes, the heartbreak was what you bring down here. And then help me open a direct conscious relationship with and gently remove the denied, dissociated, and projected parts of my carbon-based memory. And breathe. So you've canceled the goal, and now in 5B, and I'm going to invite you to go ahead and just go through with that. I invite Ruka to Kucha, or, whatever. There are many names. I leave it blank. It's been called, like in the 12-step programs, it's the higher power. It's been called the superconscious, the subconscious, the primordial X, whatever you choose, whatever term fits for you to tap in to that energy. I usually just short form it to Ruka. So why don't you go through and read that and really let that move in you.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, I invite Ruka de Kusha, or Rucha de Kusha, to incline me toward healing, restore me to my newborn essence, love, healed my denial and capacity to generate my emotion of heartbreak. Help me open a direct conscious relationship with and gently remove the denied, dissociated, and projected parts of my carbon-based memory.
And breathe. So what's happening?
I can't describe it. I can't.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't articulate.
That's okay. No need to articulate. No need to go to your intellect. Just be with the energy and breathe with it. Just as long as it's there and wants to move, be with it. And it's perfectly fine to be in silence with it. Just let whatever needs to move, move.
Okay, well, I'm going with the process as you describe.
Sweet. Awesome.
Just believe there's a release.
Good. Mm-hmm. Looks good on you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Thank you for sharing it with us all.
Oh, thank you.
Yinka, you want to go on with number 6?
So 6, I now feel.
So can you put any kind of word to what you're feeling as you're going through that?
Relieved.
Okay.
And about the heartbreak, I see that. It's healing.
Okay.
I ask to be shown a time when I have not fulfilled
So you want to let let yourself be with what you're feeling and how's the situation look, so you can see that that's processing and moving, and then so it's like, it's kind of like now you've got the boat going, you've got some momentum built up, you've overcome the inertia. So in 6C, because virtually everything we do is projection, it's an inside energy that we put into our brain's image of others, but it's really about us. So then here I'm going to ask, show me a time when I didn't fulfill, what was your goal in number 3? When I didn't fulfill that goal with myself or someone. Yeah,
plenty.
Probably plenty
times, yeah.
Okay, so you might just, if a particular one shows up, you might just jot it down where you didn't show understanding.
Okay.
Good. And of course, again, breathe. It's such an important part of the process. It's like breath is the switch for mind energy. When I hold my breath, energy is inhibited. It's not allowed to move. When I breathe, then it can literally move again. If you go back to the Aramaic language in the creation story in the ancient scriptures, they don't say that God sent out his spirit, as most would say. what it says is the Creator sent out its breath. That's our direct link. And when we cut ourselves off from the breath, we're cutting ourselves off from love. And it inhibits the movement of what wants to and needs to move in me. So, and I just, and breathing, you know, oftentimes people will breathe through their noses and clench their jaw and they're trying to hold the energy back. So we suggest that you just let yourself relax and soften and allow yourself to just take a breath or two in through your mouth. Just open and relax, feel it letting, you know, your throat, your upper chest, your chest open, your diaphragm, let it loose right down into your belly and your pelvis, your legs, your feet. Just let that breath move all the way through you.
Yeah.
Notice where there's tension and take your breath to the tension and just let everything in your structure soften. Anything else to on?
No, I can see that, you know, take some time for the like momentum to build up. And I think, you know, doing it again, but without the, you know, the distractions and really feeling it. Now I've got the hang of the process, I think would work very well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, allow yourself to just really step into it. Exactly. When people come and do my Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop for years, what I've suggested to them is they make a commitment to do 5 worksheets a day for 40 days. And you'll notice that what the worksheet does is it puts you in touch with your own unconscious dynamics. Mm. Remember, the unconscious in the ancient teachings was called the desert. If you spend 40 days in the desert, your life's going to change in ways you can't imagine. And 5 of these a day puts you into that unconscious part. It gives you access to that on a pretty consistent basis if you go through it. And it's profound. And if that's too much to do at least 1 a day. Make a commitment. You might connect with someone else in the group and have an accountability partner. And what we oftentimes have people do is just, you know, before the day is over, you know, I'm going to make a commitment. You know, my accountability partner, I'm going to do at least 1 worksheet, or I'm going to do 5, or whatever it is. I'm going to do 2. And before the end of the day, I text my partner, okay, my worksheets are done. Mm-hmm. And they text me, just so I've got someone else to be accountable to. Can be helpful, because oftentimes, you know, again, that energy starts to move and there's resistance. No, I don't wanna. Mm-hmm. But if you've got an accountability partner, it's like, okay, I'm going to finish this. I've got my support. I'm going to keep my word. So it can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
All right. Yinka, you want to go with the next piece of it?
To draw your feelings now. What's the feeling now?
So if you look at what you drew up in the beginning, how does it feel now? And then the final step, Yinka. Number 7.
Number 7. I commit to love, to living a human life. To help achieve this, I do a mass cancelling of all the times I wanted understanding from someone.
So oftentimes when people do a goal, you know, it's kind of like, again, we've got the momentum moving. Looking back at the times in your life when you wanted this kind of understanding from someone, and it's usually a thread through people's whole lives. Now that you've canceled that goal in regard to one situation, here's a place where we invite you to put the initials of everybody you've ever had that goal for. You know, I might have wanted mom's understanding. I might have wanted my big brother's understanding. I might have wanted my first girlfriend's understanding. I might have wanted my teacher's understanding. And just do a mass canceling through your whole life of whenever you've wanted that. And, you know, now it's like the files are open and the energy's moving. So just go through all the times and cancel that goal. It'll just enhance the movement of the energy that's going.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We'll give you a minute to do that. Anybody else who's following along with us and doing a worksheet, if you want to do that step. And hopefully we'll have a few questions by the time we're complete. And then you want to go on with number 7, Yinka?
So a principle of the universe is that by giving, I first get the original. I am grateful for this opportunity to heal. I choose truth and perfect love. So in 1C would be my son. Based on understanding, I structure a truly loving goal towards you and offer to you.
So you put your son's name in, you know, he's number 1C. And then specifically around the issue that you're working on, wanting understanding from him, what's a goal that you'd be willing to put into your mind and an action you're willing to take toward him? What do you offer to, willing to just offer him, whatever he does, that you knowing yourself as a creator and who you are, that you're willing to offer that regardless of his thoughts or behaviors?
I guess it's respect.
Okay, cool. Nice. You know, on our website, there's a commitment. If you just go to whyagain.org, there's a commitment you can download. And in a situation like what you're dealing with, it might be helpful to send him that commitment if that feels appropriate, or edit it if you need to. But you can download from the website and you know, just look at, is that something appropriate to offer? And you know, the commitment's designed for me to have a personal code that supports me functioning as love. Now, I get to experience that presence of love in me when I offer it to someone else, especially if it's someone I think doesn't deserve it. Because the part of me that thinks I don't deserve it is the part that I project into my brain's image of them not deserving it. So as it says, principle of the universe, by giving, I get the original. So when I offer that, the part of me that needs healing, that feels I don't deserve it, gets to receive it. When I just, you know, regardless of their thoughts, their behaviors, I'm going to offer that, whatever they do. That opens a part of me that's in need of that energy.
Wow. Okay.
And the commitment's on the website in several different languages, so you can just download it and put it out there.
Yeah, I think that might be added with the email, for anyone that got the email.
Nice, cool.
Yeah, but I'll copy it and just put it in the chat as well.
And then the final instruction is to soften and breathe. You know, just let everything within you. You know, the places where tension builds up are the places we're holding things that we don't want to look at. So as I really pay attention, interesting word, pay attention to where the stresses are in my structure, am I willing to let this new commitment that I've just made in to every part of my structure? Am I willing to hand it to all of my generations? Many of whom didn't believe they deserved it. So one of the things I've worked with over the years is the text called A Course in Miracles. And there's a really powerful thought in the Course in Miracles. And it says, only what you have not given is missing here.
Yeah.
And you can always call it forward and bring it in.
Yeah, it's a powerful process. It is. Thank you.
You are most welcome and deserving. Delighted to be sharing it with you and everybody else that's with us. Any thoughts for you at this point, Yinka?
This has been really helpful doing this, just to grasp more to it.
Sweet. Well, we'll go through the next 12 chapters of the book and then we'll do it again and see where we go from there.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming on and doing this and sharing this with everyone, because it has just made so much difference to my life. And just watching at the 5 a.m. club this morning and how much that helped people, and then getting to do this as well.
Sweet. Thank you, Melinda, for being willing.
Oh, thank you.
Being vulnerable.
Yeah, it was hard, but thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honor you for it. And again, notice the faces on the screen that you've attracted to support you here.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. From all over the world.
Yeah. Feels so.
I mean, you got this international support team now.
I know.
How cool is that?
Well, I am working my way through this, and I do believe I will get a very deep healing that is going to be a benefit to my, generational line, as you say. So, yeah.
Your whole family is going to get a really deep healing out of this. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll hopefully be able to come and give you the good news in the future.
Sweet. Awesome.
Okay.
Holding a space.
That emotional upset, what level is that at now?
Probably less 7, maybe 7, 6, maybe.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice. Good. Well, that's a third of the scale. You started out at a 9, so
yeah,
moving in the right direction. That's awesome.
I'm just going to share my last slide to say thank you to Michael, and if anybody wants to donate to Michael's cause, because I think it's amazing, and that's why I invite him to the book club. Because, yeah, so if anyone does want to donate, and encourage him to keep going, and we definitely want to see that next book.
Computer's now back in my hands and fixed, and I'm transferring files, so that's underway. It's on its way.
Awesome.
And honored and delighted to be here and support you again. Download the app. It's free. It's totally private. When we designed it, you download apps and it wants to operate your phone and change your contacts and make phone calls and send texts and access your There's none of that. There's one simple request. The only permission required with our app is this, because people put some pretty private stuff into worksheets. And that is just the ability for your phone to be able to use the internet through the app in order for the app to operate. And then when you complete a worksheet on the app, you can print it as a PDF and save it to your phone. And of course, it'll ask for permission to save it. But other than that, there are no permissions required. Download the app. And again, anytime there's a question, you're in the middle of a worksheet, I don't understand this, you can just hit a button, send a question off, and we'll answer it. So, and I'm open if anyone has any questions before we complete.
I just got Gina with a hand raised.
Yeah,
all right, let's go for
as
it.
Usual.
Hey.
Yeah. Hi, Michael.
Hey there, young lady. I heard you started a group working with worksheets.
I know.
That's sweet. That's awesome.
Well, we were doing it with Grady, and I love these worksheets. I think they're magic, Michael. I think they are magic. And yeah, and and when he said, "Oh, we're wrapping the group up," I thought, well, I like this space and time to do a worksheet. I'm gonna continue it, and although I didn't really get any takers within the group, I thought, no, I'm going to do it. So I put up a Zoom link, not expecting anyone to come, and Grady showed up, and that was nice. And I've learned a little bit about Zoom, and yeah, I'm honouring me, Michael.
Sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah, Oh, I'm seeing my mother tomorrow. She is dying, and it's all very traumatic, really, because I'm going to have to face all of the shock and all of that, you know, that comes around death, and there's a lot of unhealed stuff there within me and about my mother, you know. Okay, go on. You're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So know that we'll be holding the space for you, and that what you can do in the presence of your mother's passing, I'd offer, is that it could be a powerful place to be able to let go and to choose to be the space of love. Whatever grievances you may have against her, you know, you're not going to resolve them with her, but the fact that she gave you life, and you can be the space of active love that supports her passing. And as you do that, you'll clean up the pain of death in yourself. And when that's cleaned up, so many things change. So we'll be holding the space for you to be with your mother tomorrow.
That's really sweet. I'm so grateful. I was always the scapegoat of the family and pushed out, and you know, not wanting to be a victim here and not allowed to show any emotion or anything. And therefore, I realized tonight I've got a belief that no matter wherever I live or wherever I go, I will never, maybe it's not a deserving thing, that I will never find people to love me and nurture me. And I know I've got to do that myself. But it's a really strong, deep core belief I've been made aware of tonight. How on earth do I change that, please? That was my question.
Okay. So what I suggest you do is you go to our website, and on the home page, there's a picture of a microphone. That goes to our radio show. Click on that. Go back to the first radio show, and then start listening 5 days a week for the last 11 years. And the only thing I'll do is answer that question. Every conversation will be about that question. You use every tool we've given you and every tool that you've got in your life. And you realize, okay, so here's the next issue that I need to heal. By the way, I'm going to suggest that you give up ever having anybody love you, because nobody has ever loved you. Nobody's ever going to love you. You don't love anyone, and you're never going to love anyone. I don't love you. God doesn't love you.
What?
That's all a lie.
What?
We've been lied to. We've been lied to.
What?
Do you remember the first time you held your newborn?
What about loving ourselves?
Take a breath. Do you remember the first time you held a newborn?
Yes.
So if you go back to that moment and you tap into the essence of that newborn, your child, what word would describe their essence?
Well, it is pure love, isn't it? And that's who I am. Pure.
Okay.
That's who we all are.
There you go. You just answered your question. So notice that when you go back to the moment where you tap into the essence of that newborn isn't loving you. That newborn is love. You came into a world, we all came into a world whose specialty was knocking and beating the love out of us, and then sending us out to find somebody to love us or to find somebody to love. And they lied to us because they didn't know any better. You don't need anybody to love you. Your work is to come to the experience of yourself as love, and then bring that into your body and into the world.
Oh, well, if that's the case, I'm doing it.
That's the objective of this work. It isn't to get somebody to love you or to love somebody. It's not possible. It's like, it's totally a misuse of the word. You know, Vladimir Lenin, probably responsible for more deaths on planet Earth than any human being in history, said, the way you destroy a culture is change the meaning of its words. And that's what's happened. We've had forgiveness changed to pardoning. We've had love changed to something to do with sexual athletics or self-sacrifice or what have you. We need to get back to the original meaning of those words and recognize. That's why the first step in the worksheet is, I, Gina, who am love. Now my work is about recognizing myself as who I am and throwing away every lie I've ever been told about me until there's nothing left but who I am. Now love shows up in the world. Now I can nurture myself. Now I can truly nurture another person, and I can receive nurturing from them. I can cherish them, but I'm never going to love them. But I can be love in their presence. And when I am, wow, that's when things happen.
Wow. So, okay. So again, back to my original question, how do I get rid, I'll use that word, of this belief? Because our beliefs create our perceptions. I'm sounding like you now.
So start with the first radio show, start listening. And every radio show, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year for the last 11 years, that's the only conversation answer to that question.
Now,
everything I speak about is that. It's every tool I offer.
So if I go onto your website and click that microphone, it will come out through my speakers on my computer, will it?
Yes. You hit the microphone, it'll take you to the a link that shows you 2022, 2021, shows you all the way back to 2011. You click on that and there's a little arrow off to the side. You click on that arrow and it opens a menu, January, February, March. Click on January 1st, and click, and there's a link, and you'll be listening to that radio show on your computer. Now you can just listen to it, you can download it, you can copy the link and send it to others, but all of the archives are there. And, you know, basically, I mean, what we've done today, what we've been doing with this book club is exactly what our radio show is about. And it's every tool that we've got. So what are you going to do? Well, when I'm feeling that pain and trauma, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to tap into the presence of love. I'm going to realize that's who I am. Oh, well, I thought I wasn't worthy. Oh, so now I'm going to do a worksheet on worthiness. Oh, I'm going to cancel my need to be shown that I'm worthy. I'm going to process through that. Oh, yeah, mother gave me all those rotten messages. What am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to take out the responsibility communication tool. I'm going to communicate with mom. Oh, mom's dying. I can't, it doesn't matter. I don't have to go talk to mom to talk to mom. I can sit in my living room and do responsibility communication with mom around what happened in our lives. Oh, and there's another worksheet to do. Oh, now here I'm going to pull out the commitment. Oh, I need to live this commitment with myself. I need to go sit in the mirror and get really clear. I promise to trust myself enough to be willing to listen to and speak the truth and treat myself lovingly, gently, and with respect in my thoughts, my words, and my actions, whether I'm in my presence or not. Every tool can be applied to every situation that needs to be healed. So that's the whole conversation for the last 11 years. That's the whole conversation of every one of these book shows that we've done.
Okay.
That's
so
your healing journey.
Yeah.
Say again?
I'm loving it. I'm loving my healing journey. I've said to you before, not countless times, I'm committed to my healing.
Awesome.
You said about worthiness. Okay, so I do I tell myself I am worthy, and I can do it. So okay, I do a worksheet. I start it off, I, Gina, who I'm love. I feel, I guess, I don't even like saying it, but it is there because I've just said that this is a belief. So yeah, I guess I feel unworthy.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's no such feeling. There's no such feeling as unworthy. I have a thought of unworthiness, and I am sad or angry or afraid or hateful or spiteful, whatever it is. Unworthiness is a thought. It's not an emotion. So you want to get clear on. So what's my thought is unworthiness. So now in this step where I'm looking for my thought, now I'm going to look back and what's the feeling that I need to work through? Oh, it's grief, because I was always treated like I wasn't worthy, or at least that's what I thought. And so I'm going to work through that thought disorder of unworthiness. Look back, talk to mom and ask her how worthy she felt all of her life. I'd just about bet dollars to know she's not going to have much of an answer for that.
I'm not sure I got the courage to ask her that.
Yeah. Well, and you probably don't really need to ask her physically, but in your own mind, knowing her, if you asked her, did she live her life like she was worthy?
I don't know the answer to that, Michael.
Yeah. Okay.
My mother has got a kind of, I hate saying it, a kind of monster in a demon, like narcissistic people have.
Yeah. Well, you know what the root of narcissism is? I'm not worthy. That's the root of it. Right? So everybody come and worship me to convince me that I'm worthy.
And I just feel pity and compassion for her.
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
Okay, so I'm going to invite you to do some worksheets around the pity part. Clean that part of your mind up so that it's compassion and that you're able to bring active present love into the presence of your thoughts about her. And that will create a whole other layer and level of healing for you. And be the space. I had a friend who passed recently, and his wife, when hospice told her that he had 12 to 24 hours left, that's when she called me, and I went to just be with him and just hold the space for his passing. And it was celebration. It wasn't trauma.
Pardon? Repeat that. You held the space.
His passing was not trauma.
Oh.
Rather, it was celebration. And if we were functioning as human beings and someone passes, there would be active present love. What
when
most people call
when my son passed, I wasn't allowed to express myself. Again, more of the same, not able to express any emotions at all of any description. My daughter was in there loving it because, unfortunately she's a narcissist. And I think these narcissist people have demons in them. You can see it. It's frightening to look at.
Well, and just remember, it's all done with smoke and mirrors. So you've perhaps projected a few demons.
Well, his passing wasn't not traumatic. It was as traumatic as his life, sadly.
Yeah, I hear you. So congratulations on doing your work.
Gratitude, sweetheart. Gratitude for
awesome.
Coming. I've got a lot of work to do, and I'm willing to do it.
Cool. The human race needs more people who are willing to do their work. So thank you for being willing.
And gratitude.
Appreciate it, Gina.
Just because of time, we've just got Corey with just one question.
Okay. Thank you, Gina. Corey?
Thank you. It's so late now, and it is short. During the process, I have tried to let go. It's about my flat here, and I have tried to let go of the goal that I can stay here. But when I think about it, to do that, I start to cry. I feel so sad that I have to do that, and I don't know. And on the other hand, when I really do that, I feel unfaithful to my desire to stay here, and also to as if the flat is a person. I have to, and there is something so strong in me does not want to do that.
Yeah.
And
So my offering is that you're not sad because you needed to leave your flat. You're sad because there's sadness in you.
Yeah.
Now, I can put it on the flat. I can put it on someone dying. I can put it on the loss of a relationship. I can put it on the suffering people in, you know, somewhere else in the world. I can put my sadness anywhere. And my mind will have me believe that it's about that, but it's not about that. It's about the fact that there's sadness in here.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's time for you to forgive, literally forgive your capacity for sadness, to literally remove your ability, the ability of your mind to even generate sadness ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So there is let's say the inner critic says, no, sadness is not good for you. You need to be happy and feeling good, and sadness is you do not.
Yeah.
It's not good to feel sad.
Yeah, beating yourself up over what you're feeling is never going to heal what it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
The worksheet process will.
Yeah.
So I suggest you take that whole thing with the flat and the sadness that's coming up and do some worksheets around it and see what surfaces, see what comes up and what you move through.
Mm-hmm. And take the sadness as
number 1A, your name, who am love, feel sad.
Okay.
And just do the whole process. Number 1C is the flat. I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Go through the whole thing. What's your goal?
Yeah.
Cancel the goal. Process through it and see what, when you cancel that goal, what's at the root of this.
Insecurity.
Because your mind is projecting sadness into the flat, having it or not having it can't make you sad. But if there's sadness in there, the flat or anything else can bring it up. So this would be the time to work through it.
Yeah. And when then the other emotions come, like insecurity and
then that's the next worksheet you do. If the insecurity comes up around the flat, or maybe it comes up around your bank account, then I, who am love, feel insecurity. My bank account's empty. I don't have enough money. You know, whatever it happens to be, work the forgiveness process with it. And what you'll do is you'll drop into deeper and deeper and deeper parts of your own unconscious. As you drill in and remove those energetic patterns, then you create your life differently.
I understand. Okay.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Just quickly say that I also noticed that a lot of people have questions because they want to get to the end result without actually doing the worksheet. But you won't be able to see that until you've done the worksheet. You can't get the answer from anybody else until you've done the worksheet, because the answer is in you. That seeing that conscious part of that, that's what I've really seen in myself doing the work.
Doing the internal work is key.
Yeah.
And I love what Michael teaches, but it was doing the worksheet that really got me to see myself.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Sweet. Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Nice work, Yinka. It's good.
Good night.
See you soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
All right.
Good
Blessings.
night, all.
Thank you all.